We're talking about personal branding. How often are we kind of like seeing online where, hey, you're the person, but do you reflect the company's needs and their wants and what they kind of represent? So we talked today about, do people do business with you or do they do business with the company? And hopefully I'll be able to use the right one today. And let's
Yeah.
get started.
All right, let's go.
To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly.
I did it. We got the
Yeah, you
right
did
one.
it.
Shout out to everybody here with Daman. Good morning to you, my brother. Good morning to Lisa. So happy to see you
Morning.
here. And, Lisa kind of brings up here, that people do business with you. So, Jeff, I've been seeing quite a lot on whether it be LinkedIn or YouTube or just other places, right?
Hmm.
People talking about personal branding. And something for me that I love about you is like, it's simple things that we don't know that is our brand,
Yeah.
that is ourselves that we do, right? Like you do like the Bodacious Cowboy moniker on like different podcasts and things like that. You got the handlebars, the Hulk Hogan. And, people think that when I need to build a personal brand, it's going to take so much work and it's going to take everything like that to kind of build that up. But when it comes to personal branding, Jeff, we know that you're with RGTX Logistics Services. That's your baby. That's your bread and butter. What are some ways that you look to kind of basically separate yourself from the crowd being a service provider?
Yeah. And that's a great question. Let's back it up two steps, and I'll be the shipper. The biggest thing on my side when I was talking to people like yourself, Ryan, when they were calling me, it wasn't about the company that I was doing business with. Yeah, sure, it had some kind, of impact on the decision, but it's actually the person that you're going to be dealing with. Now, sometimes, you got hunters, you got farmers. So, depending upon the person that reaches out to you, are they going to be the one that you're going to be interacting with on a daily basis? Or are they going to take that lead once they close the door and hand it off to someone? That's the critical one, right? Because that comes down to branding. Are you branding yourself, or are you branding the company that you're working for and everybody that works for that company, if that makes any sense? So it's critical that you know your value, your worth, your experience, your knowledge, your niche, what you're good at, because that's where you're going to be branding yourself and your personality, your business, and everything else that's involved in it. Now, you talk about the Bodacious Cowboy, right? And Mark giving me that name, it's just something that it's fun, because in this business, it's so stressful that I try to market fun as well, and branding as fun. That logistics is a fun industry to be in, and that it's not all stressful, and that you have to break it up every once in a while. And that's what I come in and do, that Bodacious Cowboy, and act like a jerk sometimes, just to make people
Okay.
smile, because that's like part of my mantra. That's what the legacy is all about. That this guy is a good guy. He cares about other people. He's got that knowledge. He's got that experience. He works in this specific niche, this specific vertical, and he's not all that jack of all trades. I think that's what's really, really important for every individual out there, that they find that niche, that mode, and that value, because it's not all about the company that they work for, because again, they're dealing with you as an individual, not the company per se. Does that make sense?
No, it makes great sense because like you're talking about the human level, right? And people want to deal with
Yes.
people. And when I think of personal branding, when I look at everything that I'm thinking of personal branding, I think gone are the days of, hey, you're just on LinkedIn or you're on social media and you just share the posts of like your company, because you're an extension of the company, right? You're gonna be that person. But people, if you and I are both working for a company, the
Hmm.
same company, sorry, and I have a niche in one thing and you have a niche in another one, as a customer or even like somebody who wants to buy something off you, just not even just a customer alone, right? Just to
Right.
build that audience, they're going to pick the person that kind of fits with them the most. They're going to be able to just kind of like look at different opportunities with that. So I want to bring up some stats with you that I was doing some research on this
Yeah.
morning, Jeff, and it's kind of it's really intriguing because we live in a social media environment
Mhm.
these days, and it says 50%. Sorry, this is from Forbes, dated in February of this year. 50% of employers, they are less likely to interview a candidate that doesn't have a social media presence. So what I'm trying to say is that, hey, when you're going through that interview process, and it could be the same thing with your shippers and your customers and something like that, everyone looks you up. So if you're going to be able to look up somebody, you see that they have like the same kind of values, or they don't have the same kind of values, you kind of prejudge in your mind that, hey, I want to work with this person before or after seeing what their social media presence looks like. And
Correct.
even in the article, it kind of says like 95% of businesses, they use social media in like the recruitment process. Right. So you look at that. Gone are the days where, hey, you drop off a resume and then you get on a stack, and then they kind of go through the numbers and call you and ask you like the same questions to kind of do like an RFI when you're kind of recruiting or something like that, right? But
Right.
I think, like, you have to have that a little bit of a presence, even if it's, and it's not to say, Jeff, that you go and you post like every single day or every single hour, but think about, and the title of the episode, I want people to understand, like, think about your personal brand, right?
Yes.
Understand that, hey, whatever you kind of put out into social media or you kind of put out anywhere else, it's a reflection of you.
Mhm.
And Jeff, one thing that Damon kind of brings up here was saying, like, when the company is an established brand and known for providing a certain level of quality or service, the people work with the company. For example, Nike or Apple, in most cases, it'll be the person who's the first point of contact, right? And
Yeah.
Jeff, when you, like you said, you worked at Schneider before, and before
Mhm.
starting your own business, when you decided to kind of work there, can you like tell the viewers what was kind of like your thought process? Like, did you do research on the actual company to see if they were congruent with yourself, or how did that kind of come about with you?
Yeah, and it's really it's really funny. It's because it's kind of how I conduct business now. Um, Everybody knows I don't do a lot of cold calling, because I take the lead and then I expose it for what it is and I work it to death, because there's nothing better than a referral. Well, the same with like Snyder. So I work for Jaguar Cars. And at the time, Ford Motor Company was the umbrella that basically ruled Jaguar, Mazda, Volvo, um, and all the other Lincoln Mercury brands that were out there. So I went to a child to the parent, and it was the nice segue. So I saw this ad. It was an ad back then, for new openings, start up a 4PL operation under Snyder Logistics to basically start up for Ford Motor Company. Wow, big, right? Do I have a
Mhm.
chance? So it was stressful because my bosses at the time, I love those guys. Uh, Kevin, he was unbelievable, um, and Doug. They put me through the ringer, interpersonal skills, role playing, just like anything else that you would do as a shipper when you're conducting business with a potential service provider. It's the same thing. You're raking them through the coals, and you better be able to perform because that's how they're going to make those decisions on whether or not they're going to hire that person or you're going to hire that service provider. That's what I went through, and it was highly structured. Snyder, National Snyder Logistics is a lot of military people that are in there, highly structured processes, work instructions, everything. That's what I'm really good at when I go in and I deal with my customers and prospects, because I learned all those things. And yeah, it was extremely difficult. And so that's what I bring to the table, complex logistics operational experience, and then that interpersonal skills when I'm qualifying the prospect or the client as to what I want to do next with them and whether or not they're going to be able to work with me, and vice versa. Are they going to be able to work with me? If I'm going to be able to work with them, and vice versa. So yeah, it was an interesting thing, and it just evolved. So that's what I do with my prospects. If I have a client, then I find out what their vendors are and their manufacturers and their facilities, and then I work that line and just work that line, work that line, work that line, because the company. better than anybody else. If you're in there, why not work it, work it, work it? So that's my kind of my brand, my experience and knowledge that a lot of other people don't have. So I kind of brand that, and I call myself out. And when I do content, I'm not afraid to say, call me out. I guarantee you something. If you doubt it, call me out, give me a call, because I'm pretty confident that if I say what I do, I'm going to do what I say, and I will find something. So that's my brand. Everybody else is different.
Yeah, and that's what I love about it, right? Everybody's completely different. I've seen like your posts on like LinkedIn and things like that, and it engages, right? It's just not about to talk about, hey, I've done this. It's more of, hey, let's like make it a collaborative effort. And for
Hmm.
me, Jeff, when I'm kind of looking at my own personal brand, I'm like, okay, well, let me find some people that are successful. So maybe some influencers or some people that I want to find an example of, right? And see what they kind of do and kind of not necessarily mimic it, but like see what works for me and what doesn't work for me, right? So you look at and we talk about inner circle is so important, right? Because like you're
Yes.
able to kind of be in a group, be in a room with people that, hey, are probably doing a lot better than you, because you're able to want to learn from that. If you're the
Mhm.
smartest person in the room, you got to find another room, right? And that's what I truly believe. But when it
Yes.
comes to finding an example of building your brand, find a couple people, whether it be LinkedIn, whether it be YouTube, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, whatever the social media channels are, and see what they kind of do, right? And understand that you're going to be authentic, because I truly believe that your brand, especially when we come on these episodes and things like that, it's basically our personality cranked up maybe 2 or 3%, right? Like
Right.
it's not, like if I was to get off the phone and have a conversation with somebody, I'd probably sound exactly the same, or maybe a little
Me
bit
too.
less energetic, right? So you're being authentic, right? And I
Yes.
think what people kind of don't understand is that you're living your brand 24/7. Your
You do.
reputation is what people say about you when you're not even looking, right? So on the opposite side of that, Jeff, is, hey, let customers or let other people tell your story,
Hmm.
right? So let's say I'm having a conversation and somebody brings up your name. It's like, yeah,
Yes.
that's Bodacious Cowboy. He has this amount. And I think that's when we're talking about referrals and we're talking about like being your personal brand. So always be conscious of it.
Yeah.
Jeff, when you're making your posts on LinkedIn and
Yep.
that's you kind of expressing your branding yourself and the thoughts that you have, has there been a time where, hey, you made a post and you're like, oh man, maybe I should delete this, or maybe it's just not like from your end. What kind of thoughts kind of go in? Like, do you pre-think like your content, or I know you're kind of like a off the script kind of guy. Hey, I got
Yeah.
this thought in my head. I'm just gonna type about it.
Yeah. And that's another good question. Yeah. Have I, you know, we had that conversation with Dean the other day as well when we were discussing, uh, what our thoughts were, our projections, what we, thought was going to happen. It didn't come to fruition. That's okay.
Mm.
That's okay to be wrong, because you're just gathering data and you're taking something that you strongly believe in and you're projecting that to others. Now, if others want to believe in that or accept it for what it is, that's up to them, right? Not everybody is correct. It's okay to be wrong, but it's okay to say when you're wrong and admit it. I think that's part of the branding. Up, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Forgive me for what I said. I thought it was going to do this, but kind of deal. It's okay to be wrong. That's another part of being branding. The other things too is when you create that content or you comment on something. Let me tell you stuff. There's a lot of stuff that I read on posts that I really want to comment, and I start writing and I back out. I back out because it's like, man, I can't say this because I don't want to make it seem that I know everything and I'm going to throw this person underneath the bus. You know, I'm sure they do it with me too. That's okay, because you believe in what you write, and that's okay. That's that personal branding. But yeah, I always think when I post things out there because I believe strongly. And if like I said, I think the most important thing is that if you believe in your value and your knowledge and your experience that you bring into the table, when you put that content out, it's okay to say guarantee. It's okay to say call me out, because that's like your calling card, you know. Is this guy or girl really who they say they are? Let's give them a call and find out. That's that whole part of the branding. It's like you see it on billboards, you see it in books, stores, you see it everything. You know what? I heard a lot of good things about that. Let's try it. I mean, that's the whole thing. Yeah, if everybody was correct in their branding, there would only be one brand, and everybody in the world would be after it. Not happening. So
And that's what we got to kind of understand too. Like, we had a great discussion, like talking about that. Like, I truly believe, like, hey, when you're building your personal brand, clarity should be the number one thing that you focus on, because you want to be able to have the right message, and not basically get clouded, right? And like you're kind of saying, like, hey, if I made a mistake, I'm sorry for it, and I'll own up to it, right? And I'll be able
yeah.
to, let's have that conversation. It's not about, I feel like in this world like we kind of live on, it's not a black and white. There's a lot of gray areas. So I think,
Hmm.
like, when you're talking about, hey, clarity, and I'm truly believe, like, clarity precedes success.
Yes.
Once you have that clear message, like, we look at like some of the top brands, like Damon here's building up Nike, and then talking about Apple. We know exactly what they do. When you go and buy that new iPhone, you know what to expect, what comes with that new iPhone, right? Regardless of the feelings. But you're talking about the branding 101. Like, Apple right now can probably come out with an Apple Kleenex, and somebody will line, like, people will line
Right.
up through the doors, right? But it's those things that you've kind of done that, and bring it back to logistics, right? You have other people, like your customers, tell your story to. That's why I love referrals. When I'm talking
Yeah.
to a new customer, hey, this is the companies I work with, here's the customer's number, give them a call. you
Hmm.
know Let them sing your praises, because I've always kind of known this, that people will sing your praises, or bring up things that you necessarily don't pay attention to.
Right.
Like, I can ask you, Jeff, hey, what are some things that you like about me, and then you'll probably tell me things that I've never really paid attention to.
I don't want to say that on air.
Exactly, we only got a 30-minute show, right? But I gotta say it's the man bun, for sure. But with that being said, I think it's about testing as well, because, like, you're going to be making posts, and I think it's really important to get to a post schedule, because it is consistency, and people get to see about yourself, right? And some of the top people that I've kind of seen, whether it be LinkedIn or social media or different things like that,
Yeah.
they're consistent, and they're always kind of being somebody to be available for engagement. And just like you just said, you know if you don't agree with me, call me. If somebody says that, hey, I'm available 24/7, give them a call at like 12 o'clock at night. See if they're truly about that life, right? And I think that's where we kind of got to be careful too about our personal branding, because you got to back it up, whatever you kind of say. So, in terms of, like, our logistics industry, Jeff, I truly believe in, whether it be claiming your space, right? When it comes to niche focus, for
Yes.
you yourself, when you're looking at your niche, and we always talk about it a lot, so I don't want to get too much into it, but I kind of want to get your mindset. Why did you choose your niche, and why is that working for you right now? And have you ever had to pivot?
Wow. 35 plus years doing the same thing, everything. I think I know my niche by now. If I don't, I'm in trouble. But yeah, knowing what your value is, what you have done, you know, your references, your recommendations that you have, people that attest the things that you have done for them, being proven, that credibility, all of that is part of the branding. The thing that I say to all the new people out there, I know the struggles. I understand exactly what you're going through, but please do one thing: don't fake it to make it.
Mm,
If you get caught with your pants down around your ankles, you're gonna lose big time. Don't say something that you can't do just to try to reel somebody in, because there's a lot of smart shippers out there that will call you out, and they will ask that one question that you stated that you can do. And if you don't have those answers for that, or can't talk intelligently about it, you're done. You're completely toast. So, like Ryan said, be authentic, be honest, have integrity. Speak about you, nobody else. You are who you are. Don't try to be someone that you're not, because it's not going to be beneficial for you and your future. You're going to fail miserably. So to answer your question, mine, yeah, if you've been in the business for a long time, you better know the value that you're bringing to the table. You better have that knowledge. You better have that experience. And when you post what you do post, back it up. That's all I can say is just back it up and don't try to go in another direction that you shouldn't be in. If you want to go in that direction, find and hire somebody that's more experienced in that lane that can help boost your business forward. Don't try to talk for them. Let them talk for themselves, and redirect them over there. You have, like I said before, Ryan, you know, you have no reason to be on that path.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be down there. So, you know, push it off, and
And
just build.
I think when you're talking about your personal brand and like you're bringing up all this experience, it's like there's questions that you have to ask yourself before you can be like, okay, I'm gonna go start a personal brand. Let me separate myself from the company I work with or like the people I kind of associate with. And I think, the thoughts that kind of come to my head and agree with me or disagree with me, Jeff, like when you're kind of thinking here, when I'm looking at my personal brand, I'm thinking about, okay, what makes me unique? What am I offering? What are the
Right.
problems that I say I can solve?
Hmm.
And how am I going to get there, right? And I think those are looking internally, when you're looking at your personal brand, because I think for me at least, when I look at the social media and being a logistics professional, I think gone are the days of like, hey, getting a Freight Waves article or finding something on something kind of trucking and just posting it just to post it. I
Hmm.
think I want to hear your thoughts about it, right? So let's say if there's like the railway shutdown that's coming up on it, how is that going to affect shippers in that area or affect shippers around the world, essentially in North America? What is your value? What can you do? Because I think you look at Elon Musk, and I know everyone's been talking about him because he's got Twitter and all that stuff. But when he came out with Tesla, his big thing was that, hey, I'm gonna call out gas guzzling cars. I'm gonna call out things like solar panels. I'm gonna call out things that I feel like is an issue, but here's how I'm gonna solve them. Right? It's
Right.
one thing to have an opinion, like, oh my god, like I think something sucks, right? But tell us why. Give us a reason, give us an alternative for there, right? So I think, you look at us, if you're looking at building a personal brand, you can
Mhm.
go on take different courses, do different YouTube, and just talk to people. Like there's a lot of people that I personally see that I message, and I'm like, holy crap, I really like your personal brand. I really like what you do. And it's kind of that influence, right?
Yeah.
Like let's say just somebody really likes you, Jeff, right? Like, and you came out with a video saying, hey, 5 things that cost me under $20 that helps boost my productivity. I'm gonna watch that video and I'll probably buy some of the things that you've posted, because like you're somebody who has that image, credibility, and brand, right? And
Right.
I think people buy from people that they like. And one thing that you kind of mentioned is finding your niche and finding your target customer, or your
Yes.
target audience.
Hmm.
When you're making your posts on LinkedIn and things like that, do you have a target audience in mind?
You know, I do, but I don't. What I try to do is get people to look at my profile and then pretty much make the decision on their own whether or not they want to reach out to me and whether or not I have that background experience and knowledge needed to help them move their business forward. Just like when we call out to our prospects, hopefully everybody out there is doing their background checks, their knowledge, who they're speaking to, their background and the company's background and how long they've been in existence, so that way that you have a little bit more bullets in your guns. So when you go to fire, you've got the proper tools there to have those discussions. So that's what I try to do, is to get the attention of people to go, huh? And then, yeah, maybe I should check this profile out. That's what it's all about when you post those content. Sure, you can say, I only work in this, I only deal with that. Sure, you can be very specific if you want to, or you can just be a generalist and just say about the background and then call out little things that are more question based, that makes people think, no, I don't know. Yeah, that's a
Mm.
good point, and then boom, get them to reach out or connect with you or something like that. There's so much good content. I read so many good things from so many good people that I'm friends with on LinkedIn, that I comment on. Some of the stuff is absolutely hilarious, and some of it is downright, wow, that's pretty good stuff. That's pretty good
Yeah.
content, that drives people to comment. And then other people read that. And then that's the whole chain, right? And then somebody go, who's this? And
Yeah.
then that's a pretty good point. And then boom, things just start manifesting itself on its own. So anytime that you comment, post, just be yourself. Don't be anybody else, man. That's your own personal branding.
And I think, like, when you're building up your personal branding, you're looking at comments or you're doing different things. I just want to talk about LinkedIn as well, but like,
Yeah.
one thing is about growing your network, right? And one of the biggest things is like, Scott brings up a great point here is like, he has a habit of sharing without thoughts, but he's getting better at it and understanding that, hey, there's no really finish line. Like if you wanna, no one's gonna come out to you and be like, hey, you've had such a fire post or you had a shitty post or anything like that. Like it's not about that. It's just maintaining that consistency. And I think, Jeff, when I first got started in the industry, we would make a cold call. And then if we connected with somebody, we would send one of those lame like company intro packs
Yeah.
about company was founded, blah, 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 blah. Nothing relevant. It's just the same stuff, right? And one thing that's worked for me, and maybe it's a tip that people might take, is like when I make my cold calls, I make very few, but like when I make my cold calls, the first thing I start with is, hey, Ryan, it's Ryan at X company that I work with. Have you heard our name tossed around? And that gives like credibility because at the end of the day, if they've never heard of that company, they'll be like, okay, maybe I should know about this company. And then I like what Damon was saying is like when you work with a credible company, you have that reputation that you can build off of. But it's not to say that, hey, if you were to go start up your own company or you work for a company that's lesser known or something that got started, that you can get credibility there because you can work the channels anyhow, right? And I think
Mhm.
when we're looking at building a personal brand, for me, what's important is getting the trust.
Yeah.
That's all I'm really after, right? To
Yep.
kind of give that trust because, you know, I make these calls, I make these emails, I do whatever it is, but I want you to be able to trust me.
Yeah.
Trust Ryan as the person, trust in my knowledge and my skills that I'm gonna do exactly what I say I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
And
You're not building just a business relationship, you're building a friendship.
yeah,
That's the whole thing of building long-term business relationships, that you've got, the business side and you got the personal side, and it just shows that you care. It's not like all business. And to go back to what you were saying, you're talking about company brand. Now, I'll have to disagree with you on this for one reason. Okay. You go and you work for a company, okay, and then you find out the company doesn't have a really good brand, or it does, but they just have a lot of bad, um, how can I say this? They don't have the respect that they do, but you have that, right? So I was in a position where I lost a big account because of the company that I'm associated with. And I had this huge argument with this person. I said, I am not that company. You are talking with me. And you're not talking about another agent that screwed you. Okay. There's that person has no bearing on me. You don't know me, and I had this huge argument with the person. I said, then tell me a little bit about myself. And then ask yourself about the other agent, what he had, that I have much more than what he had. That was the whole conversation. And we got moving into the right direction, but sometimes it's more about that individual. That's why it's so important when you reach out to prospects and your clients, to make them realize that you are the person that they are going to be dealing with directly. All right. And that kind of, smooths out the rough edges. Sure, your company, the argument is your company doesn't get all the right recognition either. You've got a lot of 1 stars out there, and sure, you got a lot of 5 stars. Well, so does this company that I work with too. Okay, so why are you still in business, and why are you still getting customers? I mean, it's the same thing for you as a person trying to sell to that individual. So I mean, there's I don't know. It's not always about the company, but the person that's selling the product and is backing it up, plus his own knowledge, background, experience. So
and I
you know,
think too. Well, I think like in that moment right away, right? Because like let's say let's joke on your internet too, right? Like let's say a company was to call you right now and says, "Hey Jeff, have you had blackouts or anything like that with your internet or anything like that's going on? I'd love to have a conversation with you, right?" But if somebody was right now to call you and say, "Hey, I got a cell phone. Do you need a new cell phone?" Which conversation are you gonna kind of lean towards, right? You're gonna lean to what kind of values that you kind of have, and we
right.
were talking about movies yesterday, and when you're talking, it just reminded me of Wolf of Wall Street. There's this line that Jordan Belfort says. It's like, I never ask my clients to judge me on my winners. I ask them to judge me on my losers because there's very few. And I think like that's something that you kind of open up to yourself and you kind of get that credibility, right? And
Right.
Damon kind of brings up here, let's do a little bit
Yep.
ad hoc here. Jeff, how do you think your business would be if you couldn't leverage that you worked with Schneider? And Ryan, if you weren't at the current company, would you notice that would impact your business? So Jeff, I'll let you go with that one. Yeah, how would you think
Sure.
your business?
Yeah, and that's a great question. The thing is that yeah, I worked for Snyder, and that's the one who paid me. But I actually worked for Ford Motor Company through Snyder Logistics, where I started up a brand new 4PL operation. So it was me that helped the Snyder Logistics branding. They hired me. I represented the company. So it was based on my performance, what I was able to do, what I implemented, what I created, that had the bearing on my company. It wasn't the company. I represented the company in the best way possible. And, did I have a problem or two? I sure did, and I got called out for it. But when a company doesn't back you up and the client backs you up and say, no, it wasn't his fault,
Hmm.
that's a relationship, guys. That is a huge relationship when your client, customer speaks up for you and backs you up. So yeah, it's about the individual. It's about your beliefs and what you do, how you do it, when you do it, and if you're doing it right. And
Yeah,
then you will get called out for that, no matter what you do in business. You're just a representative for a company. But Snyder Logistics, Snyder National is a very, very good company. It's one of the best out there. I'll always say that about them, even though I don't work for them anymore. I had opportunities there, chose not to follow through. But yeah, it's all about you as an individual.
we're kind of working. And Damon brings up a great question, and I love that because you're working for your individual too. And I think I'm a little bit iffy on it too, because like I feel like, okay, so if you're a salaried rep, you work for the company. I truly believe that they can kind of tell you, kind of dictate what you
Mhm.
want to do. But at the end of the day, you're working for yourself, right? So we work in sales, but like let's say somebody works like in accounting, or they work in finance, or they work in something where not necessarily that they go and start up their own business, right? That you're basically an employee for X amount of years. You might move in different things like that. And for me, Damon, when I'm looking at companies I work with, I've only been at 3 companies in my logistics career, and this company that I'm with, this is it for me. I'm not going anywhere else. But with that being said, I've always kind of look up at their reputation. It was
Mhm.
big for me. So I'll give you a funny story. When I first got into logistics, the company that I got hired with, I canceled that first interview. The reason why I canceled that first interview is that when I looked up the address, there was a Prime America office in that building unit, and everybody knows who Prime America is. To teach their own, right? I don't want to get into that, but when I saw that, for me, I was like, no, this is not for me. I don't want to be associated with that. So I canceled it. And then a week later, I kind of did a little bit more research on my own. And this was like 6 years ago, and social media wasn't where it's at right now, as it was like 6 years ago. I'm sorry, it was just different. It was hard to get information. But
Sure.
with that being said, I was able to kind of do a little bit more research, do the interview, and kind of feel it out from there, and kind of go from there. So I think every place that I've been at, I've done my own recruiting to see if I'll be a fit for that company,
Right.
and then kind of like say, okay, maybe let's give it. Like the first thing I do, Jeff, is when I see a company, I go on their Instagram. I want to see what their Instagram is like. Obviously, they're going to have pictures with happy employees, but how often are they posting? And those things are important to me because
Right.
if I go, and especially with customers too, Jeff, when I'm talking to shippers,
Mhm.
I know it's kind of like the thing is to talk about, but if I go on their social media and they're not active, let's say they had a post from like 2 years ago or something like that, it makes me think, what is kind of like their growth strategy? Because social media for me is the one thing that I can go and check right away. Back
Yeah.
in the day when I was a kid in elementary school and we're doing projects for class, we go to the library, we look up encyclopedias, there'll be books, there'll be references. For
Mhm.
me, social media is the biggest reference, right? And I
Yep.
want to ask you what David's asking you here. And you kind of answered already, but I kind of want to get your point of it. It's like, hey, when you work at a company, whether it be Ford, whatever it is, do you work for the person? Yeah, do you work for the person or do you work for the company?
Both. I
Yeah.
worked for the company because I was on site, controlling all of their logistics. But I was also reporting to the manager there because I was an outsider in that building, running all their transportation procurement. But I also had to interact with them. I also had to deal with the UAW. I don't know how many people out there. So, you talk about stress and the demands and everything. It's not as easy as working for a regular logistics company that's not unionized. So there was a lot of different moving pieces that made it much more complicated than just working in, a DC or a warehouse. So yeah, Damon, you're working for that company, that person, but you're also hired by the company that put you in that place,
Hmm.
who who had a lot of respect for you to do so, to put you in that position, because their reputation was at stake as well. Is Jeff going to do a good job? Is he going to be able to deliver? How is he going to represent us? When you're really representing the client that you're on site with more than anything else, so you don't have that fail option. No matter what, you do whatever you have to do, and you bend over backwards, and then some. So hopefully that answers your question. It's both, Damon.
It's both. And, I think I love that you said that because we look at the other side of it too. When I went to my second company, I went through a recruiter. A recruiter recruited me. We always get them in our inboxes and things like that. But this was one that I thought they had, like, and they do. They have a great credibility about them. And, a part of that, Jeff, when I was at the second company for a couple of months and things like that, in the back of my head, it's like, okay, who do I want to win for? I want to win for myself. I want to win for my family. I want to win for just like my community. And another thing was like the recruiter, like I don't want their image credibility. And it was kind of funny saying that because I remember my bosses at the time, we were in a car and we're going to meet a customer. And that recruiter actually called them about another candidate, and they put them on speaker and they're like, Ryan's here. And my boss actually thanked the recruiter for actually bringing me on, bringing this valuable contact. Right. So I think, when you're looking at your brand, and I know a lot of people, like they post a lot of things like that, they're able to get those opportunities. And what Damon kind of says too about like working for the company or not work for an established company, sorry, is that you just want the door to be open, and
Mhm.
and your job is to really keep the door open with the service that you provide and everything like that. But if I can take, if the company that I work for has a great reputation and that will open the door or give me a little sneak peek, I'm going to do it. Because why wouldn't I? Because they've taken the time to build their image, credibility, and brand as well, right? And Jeff, you mentioned that you've potentially lost a deal, but it worked out where you had to explain that, hey, I'm a person. Like, you're working with me. Forget the reputation of the,
Yes.
the parent system, the parent
Yep.
company, or things like that. Put your belief in me. But you
Mhm.
know what? If let's say it was the opposite, like let's say they're like, hey, we worked with this company in the past and things like that, let's go in. You have a story to tell of when you're telling another customer, like, hey, customer like this, what customer A was in this situation where they couldn't work with us, but here's how I overcame it, right? And you have a story of resilience over that, right? So I think storytelling is such a big thing that I constantly harp on, because you want to give that image, credibility, and brand. But Jeff, to like your knowledge here, when you're kind of talking about, hey, be ready to fail when you're building your brand, or just be in general. How do you bounce back? Like, I know you mentioned kind of things, but what is your first thing that you do to bounce back so that you kind of protect your brand?
Your confidence level. That's it. It's your mindset. It's your positivity. It's your mindset. It's okay to fail. It's okay to try new things. Experiment. If I didn't experiment throughout my career, if I didn't take those leaps of faith and try different things, I wouldn't be where I'm here today. It all evolved from those leaps of faith. So that's how you rebound, especially if, well, let's face it, we are in the sales business, right? So every day you're failing. You are. When you're making those phone calls, you're getting a lot more no's than yeses, because if you got a lot more yeses than no's, you'd be billionaires, and you'd make it rain. I mean, seriously, right? So the question is for everybody out there is that, what do you do when you fail? You're going to fail on a daily basis. That's part of the territory. It's the strong who eat the weak, or the fastest that eat the slowest. It all depends on your drive, your determination, where you want to go, how fast you want to reach your goals and objectives. You're going to put in that effort to do it, but you're going to try. You must balance your life business. You must do that to succeed. Don't put all your efforts into business and leave everybody else behind. You only have one life, and if you take an average age of 80 years old, how long you're going to be working your life. You're going to be working more than half of your life, right?
Yeah.
So you have to have that work balance, but you can succeed if you do it right, for sure. Absolutely. I have
Uh,
absolutely no doubt.
No, and you have that with your sort of confidence, things like that. And Drew brings up a great question here. Like, do you think a sales rep can do too much branding? In a day, roughly how much time would they spend on it? And maybe it also changes over time if somebody's new, how much time equal to or less? I'll answer that for me. I think here's my rule of thumb when it comes to branding. I look at all my social channels, right? So I primarily use Instagram, I use Facebook, I use LinkedIn. Those are really TikTok I kind of just mess around with. But for LinkedIn, I've got a kind of rule of thumb, like maybe like 2 posts a day, my own personal posts. One of the posts will be this video, every daily video that we do, and then I'll just have like a thought piece about it. And you know, Drew, one of the big things that I like and I learned from was that being authentic. So if I found an article that I necessarily didn't agree with, what I would do is I would take the article, post it, and then I tag a bunch of people. And I see that on LinkedIn. I'm not a fan of that, tagging a whole bunch of people and then saying your thoughts. I kind of want to get like the right people and get the right engagement, right? And
But
I want to be able to say, hey, kind of pique the interest. So I think Drew, there's not a specific answer to that because I turn on the bell notification on some influencers on LinkedIn, and they post like 6 to 10 times a day. But it's nice for me to see those things, and I can learn from those things myself. So, Jeff, what are your kind of thoughts?
yeah,
Like you,
it's,
what do
it's,
you think
it's
that?
funny. It's funny because I have 4 27-inch monitors here. So I have all different things that are open up every single day. And I break up my day. Of course, I've got LinkedIn, and I've got Facebook up. And then I have my proprietary business app up. And then I have my email up, So I'm a tasker. I multitask every day, and my eyes are always streaming all over the place. So if I see something on LinkedIn, which I always do every single day, I'll pick and choose what I'm going to answer or comment on or even post. But the main thing there is staying consistent with your beliefs when you do comment or when you do post. Make sure it's that consistency of your brand and what you're trying to portray to others. Whether you're trying to help them out on knowledge base or trying to gain those prospects, or even talk to your clients that are out there. I have several clients that are on LinkedIn, that I have very good relationships that opened up many different doors for me. So, I just be myself. I'm not going to say, oh, what am I going to do if my client sees what I wrote? Are they going to
Yeah,
give me a call? I don't care, because you know what? I'm not going to fake it to make it. I'm going to tell it the way it is. I'm going to write my feelings and what I believe in. And if they want to believe it or not, that's up to them. Again, relationship building. A very good relationship is built on that you can agree to disagree. Number one, okay, that is the solidifier on any kind of relationship out there. I don't care who you are. Have those arguments with your shippers and your prospects and clients, because it shows that you care. I don't care what anybody out there says. And then you can have those arguments, but make sure they're meaningful arguments, and that, like I said, you can agree to disagree on both sides. That's how you build those long-term business relationship. If you think you're always right and you tell them that they're always wrong, well, start looking for your next client, because you're not going to be with that client for very long.
yeah, and I think like when we're kind of going, and I want to keep this going because I think this is an amazing conversation that we're having because what I understand is that, hey, whenever you're kind of making a post, or you're, like you said, you're on LinkedIn or anything like that, understand that you are a reflection of what you kind of post.
Mhm.
Like there is accountability to it, right? So like if I was to come up and say, hey, this so and so sucks, or this is great for me, be able to back that up. right? And I find people like that genuine, right? Because like for me, I know my personal brand. I love working with dog customers, and because I have my own dogs, I work in dog rescue. That's my
Right.
personal brand, and that's me. Like I could talk your ear off based on that, and being able to kind of show that side of it, because like we're talking about, hey, whether it be LinkedIn or it be Facebook, I kind of just keep it for family. That's kind of like my thing, and then
Me too.
Instagram, like I'm always kind of like mindful of what I post and things like that, because it's a reflection of yourself, right? And I try not to get into, I don't get into politics or anything like that, but some people do, and people like that stuff. But with that being said, Scott kind of brings up a great idea here, where he's like, you don't, it's important to kind of see here. I love to see our reps building their own brand, but also not what I want to see them is scrolling all day, because there has to be that happy medium. Right. And I think, Scott, one of the things too, with like your reps, like they represent Armstrong Transportation Group as well, is that, hey, make like your 1 or 2 posts a day, and then don't let that be your day. Like don't get sucked into it, because even for me, when I go on Instagram, make a post, check a couple stories, turn off my phone, and get back to my daily routine, because social media, there's so many. I think The Social Dilemma is one of the documentaries out there that we can get hooked on social media. So there's a fine line between that, but at the end of the day, it would have been great to have like a manager on here who manages the team of like logistics reps and things like that, of, hey, what do you find productive, in terms of what people building a personal brand and when they're working with each other, because I think it's an interesting topic. And I know next Tuesday, let's plug it out. Next Tuesday, we got our 12 Days of Christmas full day podcast, Jeff. So maybe we'll be able to bring that up. So what were your kind of thoughts on that as we're getting close to wrap this bad boy up?
It's next Tuesday. It's going to be absolutely mind blowing. Especially at that 2:00 slot that we have open, and our special guest that we're gonna have on board. I'm telling everybody right now, listen to what I'm saying. Chisel out that time. Check us out all day long, but don't miss that episode at 2:00. It will absolutely blow your mind on data. And everything that you ever wanted to know about supply chain, trade, and economy, from one of the best guys out there in the industry, and that's known throughout the whole world. That's all I'll say. It is just going to be a blast, man. I'm looking forward to it, as long as my internet stays up and ready to go.
Yeah, and it's awesome. Scott, we'll talk to Scott offline a bit, but like, I think with like your personal brand, it's certainly important. So I'll leave off on this thing. Just understand that, hey, let people tell your story. Always kind of post, always kind of build that out there, because you want to separate yourself from the company you work with, whether you be an employee or you're whether an agent or anything like that. Just make sure that you love your brand.
One thing that I have to say, which is a shame. A lot of companies out there do not allow their employees to go out and post content on LinkedIn or anything, because it has a direct repercussion on the company of itself, that maybe you believe in it, but the company does. So they don't want you to do that. Mm-hmm. That kind of, the companies pretty much have control over that individual, and that's one thing I definitely do not like. If you can't believe in yourself and what you believe in, you can't post that, and your company's telling you what and when and how you can post things. I think that's absolutely wrong. That's my own personal belief. But
yeah, and I've seen that quite a bit. I've actually seen a bunch of those posts, and those are where you have those discussions to find out why. I've always, Jeff, I've learned, like in my career, not just in logistics, like whenever there's a rule, like you can't do this, it means that somebody abused it. It's like, somebody, don't pull the red lever. Okay, well, somebody pulled the red lever 5 years ago, and we had to deal with this, things like that. Like, like we look at, well, we're gonna wrap it up here, but like,
yes.
The first company I work with, we didn't do produce. You couldn't do refrigerated thing, because they had a claim with berries like 5 years ago that they didn't want to deal with. So it's always important to find out why. And we'll kind of, maybe we'll touch on that topic a little bit more.
Yeah. If there's one rule, there'll be more. So dig into that. They'll dig into that, because they're gonna have handcuffs on you. Tell you right now.
And but that's a part of your interviewing process too. So I want to thank everybody for coming out this morning. A great conversation on personal branding, because I think, like, it's really important that you separate yourself and what you kind of bring to the table. So I want to thank everybody for coming out this morning. We'll be hitting the replay at 12 p.m., 3 p.m. Eastern time, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, all that fun stuff. Tune in tomorrow. We got Data Day with our boy Dean Crook.
My favorite day.
it's all of our favorite days because they're doing tons of value. So with that being said, we want to take care, everybody. We'll
Yep.
see you guys
Have a
tomorrow.
great day, guys.
Have
See you
an
in the morning.
amazing day and take care.
Centurion Trucking, our motto is people before profit. Today's market requires more transparency, consistency, and focus on what our clients need to win. Centurion Trucking and American Logistics are poised to help their clients achieve and surpass their targets. If you're looking for a team that honors your needs, dreams, and aspirations, then get a hold of Daman at American Logistics or Centurion Trucking and start designing your career